Someone asked you this week, maybe it was a coworker, maybe it was a friend, "When's your birthday coming up? What are you doing?" And you said the thing you always say, "Nothing, just a normal day." And they looked at you the way people always look at you, that slightly uncomfortable pause, the, "Oh really?" That means they don't quite believe you. Like you must be sad about it. Like the only reason a person wouldn't want a party is because they've given up on something. And you let it go. You smiled. You changed the subject. Because explaining it would take longer than the conversation was worth. Here's what nobody ever asks. Not why you don't celebrate, but what it actually feels like to be someone for whom a birthday is genuinely, honestly, not a big deal. Not because you're suppressing something, not because you've resigned yourself to disappointment, but because somewhere along the way you developed a relationship with yourself that doesn't require a single day a year to confirm it. And that quiet self-sufficiency is actually one of the more psychologically sophisticated places a person can be. The problem is nobody treats it that way. They treat it like a symptom. Today that changes. There are really two very different kinds of people who say, "It's just another day," and the difference between them matters enormously. One of them is at peace. One of them is protected, and they can look identical from the outside. We're going to spend some time on both, because if you've always treated your birthday like a normal day, it's worth knowing honestly which one you are. Let's start with the harder truth first. Picture this. You're somewhere between 7 and 10 years old. It's your birthday. You've known for weeks that it was coming. You mentioned it. You maybe even made a little plan in your head. Nothing dramatic, just the specific image of people showing up for you. The feeling of being the center of something warm, even briefly. And then the day comes, and something is smaller than you imagined. Maybe nobody remembered. Maybe someone did, but it felt obligatory. Maybe the celebration happened, but it was tense, or distracted, or not quite what that version of you had built in the quiet of your room while waiting for it. You didn't cry about it. You adjusted. Not dramatically, just a small, quiet recalibration. Next year, you expected a little less. The year after that, even less. And at some point, the expectation got so small it disappeared entirely. And you called that maturity. Researchers at Johns Hopkins University studied what they call the anniversary effect, the brain's documented tendency to re-experience the emotional imprint of significant dates, not just remember them. The feeling doesn't arrive consciously, it doesn't announce itself. But every year, around the same week, the same set of neurons that encoded that original experience fires again. Quieter than it used to, but still there. What looks like indifference from the outside is sometimes the brain's very efficient solution to a pain it learned not to expect relief from. Psychologist Martin Seligman documented this decades ago, what he called learned helplessness. The neurological process by which the brain stops anticipating positive outcomes in situations where positive outcomes have repeatedly failed to arrive. It's not pessimism, it's efficiency. If hoping costs you something and the reward never comes, your dopamine system eventually stops firing in anticipation. It files birthdays under not worth the activation. And you wake up on the day feeling genuinely fine, because fine is what your brain worked very hard to build. That's the part that costs something, and it's worth naming honestly. But here's something worth sitting with. Not everyone who treats their birthday like a normal day is carrying that history. Some people arrived at the same place from a completely different direction, not through disappointment, but through something that looks a lot more like wholeness. Psychologists Edward Deci and Richard Ryan at the University of Rochester spent decades studying what they called self-determination theory, the framework that describes where human beings actually get their sense of well-being from. And what their research consistently showed was that the people who reported the highest and most stable sense of life satisfaction were those whose happiness was internally generated, not dependent on events, not triggered by celebrations, not contingent on other people's participation. Just present. On a Tuesday, on a birthday, on any other day. These are people who figured out something quietly radical, that a day on the calendar doesn't determine whether they feel valuable, that the proof of their own existence doesn't require a party to become real. They don't need 30 people to confirm that the year mattered. They already know it did. And that knowing doesn't require an audience. Psychologists call this internal locus of evaluation, the state in which your judgment of your own life comes from inside you rather than being outsourced to other people's reactions. It's one of the strongest predictors of long-term psychological well-being ever documented, and it looks, from the outside, exactly like not caring about your birthday. That's the part nobody tells you. The thing that looks like sadness or resignation to everyone around you is sometimes the quietest possible form of self-possession. And if that's always been true of you, if you've always known this about yourself but never had the language for it, honestly, subscribe. We unpack things like this every week, the parts of you that the world keeps misreading. Now here's the deepest layer, the one that most people watching this have never fully examined. There's a distinction that matters enormously and almost nobody makes it. There is a difference between not needing the party and not wanting it. Those are not the same thing. Some people who say it's just another day genuinely mean it. They've built a life rich enough that no single day carries disproportionate weight. Every day has something in it worth feeling. The birthday is just a Wednesday with a slightly different texture. Nothing is suppressed, nothing is missing. But some people who say it's just another day are saying it because the alternative, wanting it, expecting it, building something around it, carries a risk they've already been burned by too many times. Psychologist Jennifer Crocker at the University of Michigan studied what she called contingent self-worth, the degree to which a person's sense of value is staked on specific outcomes. And what she found was that people whose self-worth had been repeatedly damaged in contexts they couldn't control, including in the small, supposedly insignificant moments of not being shown up for, often learned to preempt the disappointment by removing the expectation entirely, by opting out before the day could let them down again. It looks like freedom. It functions like protection. And only you know which one is operating in you right now. The distinction matters, not because one is right and one is wrong, but because if it's the second one, there's still an 8-year-old inside you who made a very logical decision in a very difficult moment, who decided that wanting things was a liability, who learned to need less so that needing less would hurt less. And that version of you deserves to know that the decision made sense then, and that you're allowed to want things now. This is the stuff we come back to every week. If you felt something just now, subscribe. There's a lot more coming. And now the part I most wanted to reach. You have been told you're sad about it. You've been told you're in denial. You've been told that someday you'll regret not celebrating, that no one is really this unbothered, that beneath the calm there must be something broken. You've been treated like a person who gave up rather than a person who arrived somewhere. So let me say clearly what nobody has said to you clearly enough. You are not broken for not needing a party. You are not emotionally unavailable. You are not someone who gave up on joy. You are someone who found a way to carry your own sense of worth through every single ordinary day of the year instead of concentrating it into one. That is not less than the person who counts down to their birthday for a month. In many ways, it is more. It is harder to build and rarer to have. Whether you got here through pain or through peace, whether the quiet came from armor or from arrival, you're here. And the fact that a single day on the calendar doesn't determine how you feel about yourself is not a wound. It's wisdom. Some people need the candles to feel the light. You learned to carry it with you.